Combined views of the conversation with Donald Trump and subsequent discussions by other accounts now around what? Wait, and subsequent discussion by other accounts now 1 bill. Yeah, guys. If by like combined my channel views plus all the views in the comments underneath my videos on my channel, that's like 3 billion a month, probably. You know, every time anyone scrolls down through the comments, that's like 100 more views to my channel collectively, trillions and quadrillions and squintillions of views. An all-time record, but the media refuses to write about it because they are fake news. What do you genuinely I know it's funny, but also you guys know that like society can't continue like this, right? We're reaching a breaking point. I feel like with every passing day, the bar for what a credible lie is to the right goes lower and lower and lower, to the point now where Donald Trump is regurgitating people making, literally like posting Kamala Harris rally pictures and going, this is AI, this isn't real. Or AI generating something and then saying this was posted by Kamala Harris. Like, democracy is kind of incompatible with people who have fallen too far down the hole. And I want democracy to continue. You know what I mean? Like, genuinely, we're reaching a point where fully, like, a significant portion of the people in this country are legitimately, like, not compatible with reality anymore. It's not just that they're wrong. It's not just that they're, like, indoctrinated. It's they're indoctrinated beyond a point. Man, really makes you sympathize with people who talk about re-education camps. I know that's, oh man, crazy lefty talk, but like legitimately, what do you do with somebody who eats all this stuff up and believes it? You're actually like worthless to society. You know what I mean? Like you know, if it's between re-education and being jailed, like what do you do with the thing is, it's functionally indistinguishable from being a paranoid schizophrenic to the point where it like hinders your ability to function in society, right? Like there are plenty of psychiatric conditions that make you kind of incompatible with reality, and usually we look at that and we go like, oh man, that needs medication, or like that needs this or that needs that. But in this case, it's being deliberately cultivated by an outside force. It's a desirable outcome. You know what I mean? And it's like, fuck, dude, what do you do? If we agree that people like that need to be institutionalized because they're harmful to society on a psychiatric level, what do you do when it's like 1,000 times as many of them, but it's being politically cultivated? Because you know right now there are now literally like hundreds of thousands of Trump supporters who believe 1 billion people tuned into their conversation, and they will never, ever change their mind on that. What do you do with that? We literally kind of did this with Reconstruction. We failed. Reconstruction failed. To this day, there are tons of people in the South who think that the North started the war of Northern aggression. You know, it wasn't about slavery. It was about state right. It didn't work. Obviously, we didn't do it hard enough. It's like a cult. It can involve literal deprogramming. Yeah, but it's a cult of like 100 million people. You know what I mean? The North did start the war, and that's a good thing. No, we didn't. The South fired on Fort Sumter. They seceded, which was illegal, and then they fired on the North. They started it on both ends, like in every way. Post-war Germany would probably be a better example. Yeah, except that also didn't work. Remember, we've gone over this on stream before, where there was polling done of the German population after World War II, and a significant number of German adults still believed that they were in the right and the Jews did everything bad and so on and so forth, even into the 1960s. Like half of the adult German population had the same ideology they did when the Nazis were in charge. The only thing that eventually denazified German society, it wasn't like changing people's minds. It was the young people grew up on like collective Western information. And then like there's like a generational gap where the like at some point the children born in the 1950s were like, holy shit, dad, what the fuck do you believe? You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger literally talked about this. He did a pretty good video where he was like, hey, Nazism is for losers. Like I grew up, like all the adults in my life, they were like former Nazis and they were like miserable, broken men, you know? I don't know. It's just kind of weird that it seems like once you are subject to a certain level of political programming, it's like a almost statistical fact that you can't be taken from it. You can't be like fixed, and it's just waiting for you to like die and be replaced by better younger people. I don't know. It's kind of unfortunate. It's a little bit pessimistic of a way of thinking about people. You know, any individual can have their mind changed, but like as a group in aggregate, how often does that actually happen? You know. Did you see there was a big thing on TikTok of white women talking positively about Tim Walz because he reminded them of their dads before Fox News melted their brains? Yeah, it's a real thing. The Fox News like boomer, you know? Thankfully, it's not my parents. My parents are chill, but I imagine a lot of you have parents who were at some point decent people, and then they just got roped in further and further. Maybe you don't even remember, but like it's not like they were always like that. They were made worse people, and all of this is being done. Never forget the material element of this, the class analysis. None of this is being done like for funsies. It's because a small, like oligarchy of ultra wealthy business magnates stand to benefit from lower tax rates and from, more coal power plants being built. So the fossil fuel industry, the Wall Street and so on, they pay the Republican Party and Fox News and all of their associated politicians. They buy them out. And they, like think of how aggressively Trump has been pushing drill, baby, drill. What voter these days gives a fuck about like, oh, when like Elon Musk in his interview with Donald Trump was literally like, I'm not one of those radical leftists who's like mean to coal companies. What are you talking about? What? This isn't a real issue. You're both just completely locked in on lobbyist propaganda about how you need to be like so good. You know, no matter what, you have to like suck the dicks of fossil fuel companies. There are multi-billion-dollar companies that are paying you to not besmirch them, and Elon Musk is really stupid, so he's doing it in a really obvious way where he's like, I like, the idea of renewable energy, but I'm not talking shit about any oil companies or anything. Like they've got a fucking gun to the back of their head. It's crazy. When you say liberals enable it, do you consider those like lower taxy wealthy types liberals? I don't know what you're talking about. There are like neolib types who feed into this to an extent, but there is no comparison between the right wing and the left-wing propaganda mills in this country. Literally, like, completely incomparable on every level. Like, the Clintonite MSNBC, CNN, like, whatever you would consider to be their wing of the propaganda arm is, like, completely a whole different deal from the way Fox News and their associated media empires handle these things. It's completely incomparable. It's insane, Marx would say this is all because of capitalism, and he'd be right. Yeah, I'm tired of the both sides argument. Well, I mean, again, neoliberals are in, like, Clinton is massively responsible for the position we're in right now because he ceded a bunch of ground in the post-Reagan era. Reagan won with an overwhelming political mandate, and Clinton basically gave up the game, and he was like, yeah, no, we're not going to fight you on the economic issues. Same thing that they did with Blair after Thatcher in Britain. And I think neoliberals are largely responsible for the normalization of some talking points concerning the business, unions, that kind of thing. But in terms of the mass disinformation, nothing compares to the way the like right-wing Fox News, OAN, Newsmax, the right-wing pundits, it's not just that they lie, it's that almost everything they say is purposefully dishonest in a way that is incredibly easy to fact check, and nobody cares. It's the difference between a person who occasionally gets away with a lie and a person who lies habitually, often for no purpose at all, in ways that are incredibly transparent and obvious. And again, it is Hitler-esque in that, if you get people sort of used to accepting lies, you can sell them on basically anything. And that'd be a big lie talk. I'm not the first one to make this point. I'm not super original in saying this. It's just important to think about, I guess. Rupert Murdoch has to be one of the most destructive billionaires in the history of the planet. Yeah, it's very simple. Again, this is like 101 class analysis. The job of politicians is to balance the interests of their constituency and their donors, and different politicians do that in like varying proportions. For the Republicans, you need to balance the needs of the constituency so you get voted in, but you are the party of big business, so you need to do whatever is necessary to appease your many, many donors and the many wealthy people, who sort of lobby and propagate your misinformation. And it's really difficult to sell the American people on the political agenda of we will make your life worse to sort of enrich the bourgeoisie, so they sell you on cultural issues instead. Oh, it's not our fault that your, jobs are drying up and no one gets paid enough. It's not our fault for taking away the unions. It's actually the fault of brown people for immigrating. And then you get people really invested in the low-level cultural issues while you get away with a bunch of high-level economic shenanigans. The problem is we've bought our own propaganda, and now the right is doing fascism for fascism's sake rather than fascism for big business's sake, which is meaningfully distinct in the sense that they're now willing to do things that are fascistic, even if it hurts businesses. That's what we're seeing right now with immigration. I promise you, American business does not want 20 million immigrants deported the way that Trump is currently bragging he's going to do. I promise you, they do not benefit from that. There are tons of industries that massively rely on immigrant and undocumented immigrant labor. They do not want that to happen. Immigration is the lifeblood of this country. It has been since day one. It's economically beneficial. It contributes to lower rates of crime. The cultural diversity of this country is unironically one of its greatest strengths in terms of our global hegemony. There's a reason why almost all of the culture around the world that we hear about that is American comes from like Black or Latin American sources. It's because that like low income cultural point, I just immigrated 10 fucking years ago and I have some things to say kind of like attitude, or, I grew up in Harlem or in the Bronx and I have something to say. Like these contribute massively to the power of our country. But the right wing doesn't like it anymore, because like brown people scary, black people scary. The existence of brown and black people in America is keeping me from getting a fucking trad wife. They all want like 14-year-old blonde trad girl wives or whatever. Look at JD Vance, man. Jesus Christ. So now they're going after, like they're actually unironically doing the fascism bit rather than just signaling at it is in an attempt to forward economic issues. The same thing happened in Nazi Germany, right? Like, you have that like crossing point where you signal the issues to benefit the businesses, and then past the point, you're not even benefiting the businesses anymore. Russia did the same thing, Obviously, the war in Ukraine is not benefiting the oligarchs. When you go too far down the road, it's like, what do you even do? We're not talking about unsustainable infinite growth, double KA. We're talking about the opposite right now. Even businesses stand to be hurt by what is happening right now. Like the Republican talking points, they're not to the benefit of businesses. It's fascism for fascism's sake. We're sort of hitting the pure point. Why didn't big business side with Trump on January 6th? What would they have done? There was a sudden riot at the Capitol. What is like Papa John's Pizza gonna go on social media and say we stand with God Emperor Trump? That's not how it works. Big business does stand with Donald Trump. Like look at the way the donor class behaves. Look at the way the stock market behaves. It's not that obvious. It's not like big business in Germany didn't stand with Adolf Hitler during the beer hall putsch. They fell in line because they were more interested in being led around by a fascist than they were in losing power to socialist revolutionaries. Yes, Papa John himself would be a Jan 6er, but he doesn't currently run Papa John's Pizza. Big business craves stability above all else. Well, now that's going to get hurt. The economy does benefit from stability, which you might notice we're not living in very stable times. My conservative parents just went to Chicago for a concert. Before they left, they were making plans in case they got shot. But when they came back, they said it was a beautiful city. They could see themselves and me living there. They said Fox News was blowing it out of proportion, lied about how dangerous it is. That's nice. I think that's nice. They once turned down a free company trip to New York because it was dangerous. Gives me hope they can change, be a bit less crazy. Holy shit, dude. It's the big manly conservatives, like terrified of big cities, It's fucking crazy, man. These people always signal like, yeah, man, we're the strong men that build big society. And then they're like, yeah, I'm terrified of big cities. I want to live in a house in the middle of nowhere so no one else bothers me. Or I might shoot through the front door and hit the porch or whatever. Like, Jesus Christ, man. My parents think Chicago's a fucking war zone. Yeah, I mean, no disrespect to your parents, but they and the rest of them are kind of a little bit fucking stupid. I don't know. I just, it's just a little bit inhuman to me. I mean, your parents, I'm saying they're not human beings to me. How do you exist as a human when your entire worldview is that vibes based? Genuinely. How hard is it to just look anything up ever? I can't relate to it. I encourage sympathetic analysis with conservatives from like a structural analysis standpoint. Like you have to understand why they are the way they are, and I do hit on that. But from a personal level, how the fuck do you end up? How do you not ever at any point go, I wonder if I'm right? Oh, I'm completely wrong. It turns out there were a million things I could have looked up to sort of second guess like New York City has a lower rate of violent crime than a bunch of conservative states do. you know? Like on average, the whole state, not just the cities. My grandparents are terrified they'll be shot and killed at our local mall. I tried to invite them out because they bitch there's nothing to do when no one comes to say hi in their stinky house with their hateful attitudes, but the mall and aquarium are war zones apparently. It's crazy how many people shouldn't be able to vote. That's my euphemistic way of saying it. Like you, Artemy. You shouldn't vote. You're very stupid. What are you meowing for? Are you meowing? Do you have a tummy ache? Is that why you meow? No, you're meowing because you're dumb. Num num num. What about unreported urban crime? I know you're just joking, but like if you want to worry about unreported crime, my dude, it is the rural areas, okay? You can't do so much as a domestic in an apartment building in the city without everyone around you hearing it. Like, do you have any idea how much rape and abuse happens in rural areas where there's no one around to hear it or check on it, and like you have no connections or ties or friends or whatever else to check up on you? Is there any way to institute a mental background check prerequisite for voter registration that wouldn't immediately go dark as hell? Sure, you can ask a person whether they're voting Democrat or Republican. If they're voting Republican, you take away their voter registration. It makes, I don't think that could be abused. Doing a little China here, huh? I mean, you joke, but unironically, the CCP is really like I don't know, repping some favorable positions. At least there's like a semblance of competent bureaucratic management from the CCP. Obviously, they're also fascist, but like the level of disinformation that they're kind of throwing out there seems to be more, I don't know, directed towards the proletariat rather than them huffing their own supply quite as much. Well, that might not be true. I guess it depends on what exactly you're talking about. When it comes to like military posturing, maybe they are just that crazy. When it comes to like city management, I guess sometimes it's more to the extent of like, actually, hold on, how much do the Chinese, yeah, they're not a death cult. At least they believe in climate change, right? How much does the average Chinese citizen even get involved in politics? Don't most Chinese citizens just see the Chinese Communist Party as like they're in power anyway. They're kind of like the benevolent manager of our nation. I don't think they're this like huge polarization that we have in America. It obviously can't really take place in China because they don't have two parties. They just have one. There you go, guys. That's the argument for a one-party state. Okay, go to Cuba. Didn't the CCP have to cleanse a bunch of corruption because their artillery rockets were full of water instead of fuel? Yeah, but that's based actually, if you think about it. That's based in red pill. Could we just have no parties and only independence? Welcome back, George Washington. Died 18 something. Born. Did he die 18 something? When did he die? It's like 1800 or a little before. 1799? Ah, he almost made it. Damn, he almost made it. He was right, though. Well, it's not a matter of whether or not he was right, is that it's kind of inevitable. The bourgeois democracy kind of necessitates the existence of political parties. Maybe not even bourgeois democracy, maybe just democracy in general cannot have exclusively independent. You can have multiple parties, but I don't think you can do without parties. I don't know if there's a way to organize that. It's odd that in China, a one-party state polling still shows people as viewing democracy as important. Yeah, the CCP is not a democratic organization at all, but I think that there is a feeling of participation in China, even if it's like just a feeling, That's the impression that I get, at least. The idea, like, people feel a kind of ownership over the CCP. They don't think of them as like a distant colonial government or whatever. There's not like a widespread feeling of resentment that the CCP is this like, distant, uncaring organization, even though obviously to a large extent they are. I think that a lot of people are still really grateful about the whole ending the famine in the 70s bit, the whole making China the greatest economic miracle of the late 20th century bit, Okay, Vosh, but didn't they start that famine too? The one in I mean, it was their policy. The one in the 70s? I think, wait, were there two separate ones? Or was it just the one and it went on for a while? I thought there was one wave under Mao, and then there was one later in the mid. There's just the one? Okay, yeah, definitely them then. The Great Leap Forward? Well, yeah, you gotta kill the sparrows. Is a one-party state good if the party is good? I mean, you're kind of defining the terms here, right? Is a good thing good if it's good? If it's good, it's good. One party states are not a system conducive to good outcomes, if that's what you mean. Then again, it's not even just like the party isn't really necessarily the issue, you know? You could theoretically have a one party state with a lot of ideological disagreement within that party. The party could be like a kind of formality, and then within the boundaries of that party's ideological leanings, you could have a lot of like discourse and legitimate democratic, bickering. But in practice, obviously, that usually isn't the case, and the party just chooses its own candidates, which is what the CCP does. You can vote in China, but you're voting for candidates that have already been approved by the Chinese Communist Party. You can't join unions other than the Chinese Communist Party union. You can't vote for candidates outside of those chosen by the CCP. So obviously, so it's democracy theater? Kind of, yeah. What about a dictator who just does what the people want? I reject the idea that people are naturally like the way they are. I think this is a very liberal way of thinking, very individualistic in the worst way. I say this like a slur, individualistic, Oh yeah, like look at all of these Fox News boomers, everyone's dumb. They're dumb because they're consuming corporate media created by an economic class that is intending to misinform them for their own gain, These are all choices, You could have a society where people are genuinely well educated and involved. That's just not the incentive structure that we have set up right now. Not to mention, as dumb as people are right now, you got to imagine they're a lot smarter than people were on average back in 1873, right? I mean, I haven't been to 1873. I just feel like if I went to 1873 and I try to get a feel for the cognitive faculties of your average, voter back then, I feel like I'd be left lacking. I don't think they'd be doing any better. Go back to 1873 and they'll laugh at you for believing in bacteria. Yeah, I guess I just you have to wonder what the capacity for misinformation must have been in an era where Egyptian mummies were being ground into dust because it was commonly believed that consuming them or using them in poultices would heal ailments, that was a common belief. You have to wonder, in an environment like that, yeah, and for paint, you have to wonder, in an environment for that, I feel, I don't know how much misinformation, I don't know how much they're getting,